You want a war? You're gonna get one.
They refuse to see the change in me. Why won't they wake up? Come on, come on, come on. Let's get out. Move to the music. Play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Hey yo soldier, welcome back to Reliving the War and welcome to the 18th of September 2000. Tonight Raw's in Chicago, Illinois while Nitro's in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. The WWF parts ways with the USA Network after tonight's show. Raw will be moving to TNN next week, so let's see if the WWF went out with a bang. You can bet their next episode of Raw is going to be huge, what with them going on to a new network. Speaking of next week, there's no Raw vs Nitro episode of Reliving the War getting uploaded this coming Thursday, but I've got something else that'll tie you over. I'm not leaving you with nothing, so do come over next week at the usual time. The Unforgiven pay-per-view is going to go live on Thursday, July 31st, so while the Raw vs Nitro stuff's taking a break, there's still plenty for you guys to watch on the channel. The backlog's been completed, so it'll be like I was never gone. Make sure you've checked out the Fall Brawl video before watching this video, and if you're good to go, let's get started. Stephanie McMahon opens up Raw with a promo. On Nitro, we've got the Filthy Animals versus the Natural Born Thrillers. I was just about to complain about WCW booking the Thrillers versus Animals way too often already, but this match is a continuation from the Fall Brawl match that ended abruptly. They want to pick up where they left off after Paul Orndorff got stretchered out of the building, so only Rey Mysterio and Tagras remain for the Animals, while the Thrillers had Jindrak, O'Haire, Palumbo and Sanders. It is good that WCW wanted to continue this elimination match on so fans didn't feel ripped off, but at the same time, I don't think anyone would have really minded if it didn't happen either. It's like WCW are trying to show some goodwill, but fans couldn't care either way. O'Haire missed his Sean-Tom bomb and he took out his own partner Jindrak. This allowed Rey to eliminate Big Sean while Tagras pinned Jindrak, so already it's 2-on-2. We then see some good double team work from Rey and Tagras before Mysterio goes up for the Nutcracker, but Sean Stasiak, who was providing commentary, stops Rey from jumping off, and it looks like Stasiak's actually part of the match. The commentators said it was originally 4-on-2, so they're making it up as they go along, though to be fair, Stasiak did not get eliminated in last night's Fall Brawl match. Kwee came out to attack Stasiak. Remember, the Thrillers attacked Kwee last night completely unprovoked, and as Palumbo covers Rey after a double underhook facebuster, Tagras covers Stasiak. That means Rey and Stasiak have been eliminated, and Tagras then manages to steal a pin when performing a schoolboy on Palumbo. The crowd absolutely loved this too, so give him credit, the audience is hot for this opener. In comes Mike Sanders. Mr. Above Average takes a few chops. He then goes for a gorilla press, but Tagras counters with a sleeper, and Mike puts Tagras down with a snapmare. Rey then attacks from behind, and this allows Tagras to perform the Stuff Buster, and amazingly, Tagras pins Sanders to win the match. Kevin Nash watched this backstage and he wonders if the Thrillers need a coach. And after a commercial break, Nash brings the Thrillers to his locker room where he puts a plan together on his chalkboard. Big Kev wants the Thrillers to connect the X's and O's. They need to focus, they need to follow this game plan because they suck. Over on Raw, Stephanie McMahon says it's time to put an end to this Kurt Angle nonsense once and for all. Kurt's been a good friend to Stephanie, but everything that's happened between Angle and Hunter has gotten petty, ugly and messy. So Little Miss McMahon wants Commissioner Foley to cancel the upcoming Angle vs Triple H match at Unforgiven. Stephanie will be a very unhappy woman if the match goes ahead, and hey, no one wants to see Stephanie unhappy, right? Out comes Mr. Integrity. He appreciates Stephanie's courage, but Angle says the match has to go ahead. Kurt has to teach Triple H a lesson or Steph's going to be even more unhappy than what she is right now. Kurt thinks Stephanie's maybe lost her memory, so he's put together a little video. A video that shows Hunter's conduct over these past few months. We see Hunter accidentally hitting Stephanie. We see Hunter shouting at Stephanie. We even see the illustrious Connecticut bum stretcher on Trish. And what Kurt's trying to get at here is that this all can't be coincidental. This stuff's happening way too often, and yeah, I'd be inclined to agree. Out comes Triple H. Hunter says he knew Angle was going to put together a little video package because Angle has a little package, and Hunter then says maybe he's got it all wrong. Triple H has been given this some thought, and yeah, Kurt Angle could be considered a stud. He's in the prime of his life, and in front of Kurt is Stephanie McMahon, a hot woman who Kurt constantly says he wants to be friends with. Hunter wonders what kind of guy looks at a woman like Stephanie and just wants to be her friend. So yes, Hunter's questioning the sexuality of our Olympic hero. It's true, it's true. Triple H thinks Kurt would maybe like to go out shopping with Stephanie. He could maybe go out and buy some drapes. Hunter says there's absolutely nothing wrong if Kurt's, quote, batting off the other side of the plate because alternative lifestyles are totally acceptable in this day and age. Triple H says it actually explains a lot of Kurt's gay. He's maybe using Stephanie to get closer to Hunter, seeing as the game's noticed how Angle smiles at him a lot. And just as Hunter was about to tell Kurt to come out of the closet, Mick Foley shows up to save Angle from more embarrassment. The commissioner says he's got a lot of respect for what Angle did for the USA. He represented his country like a true hero, but Mick wonders what team Kurt Angle plays for in the year 2000. Old Mick's getting in on the fun too. Mick explains to Stephanie that no one wants to see this love triangle end more than Mick Foley, and that's why the match must take place at Unforgiven. Tonight though, Angle and Hunter won't be tearing each other apart because these two, along with Stephanie, will be in action tonight. Angle, Hunter and Steph are going to face Test, Albert and Trish Stratus, and that match will begin at the top of our number 2. A fun promo here, and credit to Kurt Angle for playing it so well. The Right to Censor got attacked in their locker room by the APA. Stephen and company have strength in numbers though, and the Acolytes got taken out. Maybe Bradshaw and Farouk should think about these things before going on offense. Over on Nitro, meanwhile, fans get excited when the cameras cut to Goldberg's locker room. Dirty Doug Dillinger knocks on the door, and out comes Vince Russo. Got him. So we've got a Vince Russo promo next on Nitro while the RTC regroup to take on the Dudley boys. Look at the way Russo's walking to the ring. This is the way you walked into school after getting that video game a day before all your mates. Russo says King Kong's alive and well. Russo stood over Goldberg's lifeless body at Fall Brawl, so Vinny Ru's on quite a buzz tonight on Nitro. He then reads a registered letter he received in the mail. It says, "Dear Mr. Russo, your honour, sir. After getting my ass handed to me last night at Fall Brawl by Scott Steiner, I came to the conclusion that I'm no longer worthy of working in WCW or working for an icon like you, Vince Russo. I, Bill Goldberg, am a total disgrace. I'm a loser. Therefore, I have no other choice but to officially resign from WCW." I don't know guys, but I don't think Goldberg wrote this letter. Russo welcomes Scotty Steiner down to the ring, Big Papa Pump's here with Medeja, and Scott says he did exactly what he said he was gonna do. He beat Goldberg up at Fall Brawl, though he didn't expect Billy Boy to resign. At that very moment, the crowd chants Goldberg sucks, and if this was the WWF, Jerry Lawler would be saying we're in Bizarro land right now. Scott then says he's going to face Sting or Booker T next week for the world title. Those two have a championship match tonight on Nitro. And when Russo says he never promised Scott a title opportunity, Jeff Jarrett comes out because of course he does. Double J feels he deserves a title shot. Scott says Double J deserves a foot up his ass. Things get a bit heated, and it only gets worse when big sexy Kevin Nash makes his entrance. When Nash steps inside the ring, the crowd chants "We want Hall," but Kev's not here to talk about Scott. Kev wants his title rematch against Booker T. So Russo books a tag team match. Whoever gets the pinfall or submission will get a title shot next week on Nitro. It's going to be Scott Steiner teaming up with Double J, and Kevin Nash is teaming up with, my god, Vince Russo. Russo says it's been his lifelong dream to be WCW champion. He deserves the opportunity to win the belt, and Kevin Nash can't believe what he's hearing. Scotty says his Johnson's bigger than Russo's arms, and therefore this disqualifies him from getting a title opportunity, but Russo's putting himself in this match, and no one's going to change his mind. Over on Raw, it was Bill Buchanan and the Goodfather representing the Right to Censor taking on Bubba Ray and Devon. Seeing as Val Venus and Stephen Richards were at ringside, then you can probably guess what happened here. The Dudleys were strong during the first portion of the match. Richards and Venus helped out a little. We built towards a Dudleys comeback, and when the boys got a chance to fire up, Venus and Richards once again got involved. The Right to Censor wins via pinfall. Bradshaw and Farouk ran down to stop a post-match beatdown. The APA and Dudley's face the Right to Censor this week at Unforgiven, by the way. Good energy from the crowd here as the babyfaces clear out the ring. Vince Russo's on push-up 3002 when Kevin Nash comes into his locker room. Russo's got a plan and he's got it all figured out, so it's time to bust out the blackboard again, and Kev's not happy with how he's being represented right here. Russo fixes this little hiccup and it's all good. I also like how Vince has massive arms, I like how Steiner has little arms, and Double J's holding his guitar. Peak WCW right here. Russo wants to get the pinfall win, but Kev has a better idea. This area right here needs good cover. Up here, where Jeff and Steiner are, Russo and Nash need to do some zigzagging to get the boys all confused. Russo can't cross this line, that part is super important, and down here is where Kev's going to perform the powerbomb while Russo moves to this position. This gives us the finish to our main event match. Russo isn't happy with the Bite Me plan, and Vince says this is his big opportunity to become #1 contender, but Nash doesn't want to play ball, clearly. Kev goes back to the heel locker room, he tells Double J and Scott that he's out of the match and he won't be Russo's partner. Instead, he wants to coach the Natural Born Thrillers. Okay then. Russo needs to find himself another lackey for tonight's main event. Sting and Booker T, meanwhile, started fighting each other during a backstage interview. These two are facing each other for the world belt very soon, and things are already getting heated up. Though this little piece of business leads into our next Nitro match. It's Disco Inferno versus Ernest Miller, while The Rock cuts a promo on Raw. Disco Inferno, along with his new visual aid, the Disco Duck, tells Ernest Miller he needs to control Sting and Booker, and he says Miller's doing a terrible job right now as commissioner. Ernest thinks Disco's brought a goose to his office. Disco says no, it's a duck. I don't give a fuck about Disco's duck because it doesn't give a fuck about me, but that's neither here nor there. Miller wants to fight Disco right now, and if Disco can beat the cat, then the Inferno's gonna run Nitro tonight. Disco's so confident that he can win that he puts Ray and Hoovie's tag team belts on the line as a way to sweeten the deal. So Miller made his way to the ring, and he said if any member of the Filthy Animals tries to interfere, he's going to suspend them without pay. The Animals are seriously pissed off with Disco. The only backup he has is a stupid duck, and he uses said duck to hit Miller from behind, but obviously this didn't do any damage. Within seconds, Disco takes a kick to the chest, it wasn't even the feliner, and Miller wins via pinfall. Hoovie and Ray have lost their tag team titles, and the Animals come after Disco for being so stupid. Disco grabs his inflatable duck, he runs away, and we see Disco leaving the arena in his car while the Animals continue to give chase. You goofed up, Disco, you goofed up big time. On Raw, The Rock shows footage from last week's SmackDown. The dead man put Rocky through a table. The two had a match against the Dudleyz right here, but it went downhill pretty fast. Rock says he's never liked The Undertaker, but he's always respected him. If Taker wanted to fight Rock, all he had to do was ask, and so Rock offers the dead man a title match tonight on Raw. All Taker has to do is come out and ask. Rock doesn't care if it's the American Badass, the Phenom, the Lord of Darkness, or the Lord of Monkey Piss, it doesn't matter. Rock's calling Taker out right now, and there he is, unfortunately not in his Lord of Monkey Piss gimmick. Taker says when Rock was in his dad's car and, quote, trying to get some from Mary Jane Rottencrotch, Taker was, again I quote, humping the road and winning WWF titles. This man talks absolute bollocks. Taker told Rock on SmackDown not to get him angry. Rock left Taker hanging during the table match and the Dudleys put the dead man through a table. So Rock's annoyed the Undertaker, and to make matters worse, Rock just called Undertaker out. Taker says he's still down with the devil and he'll get medieval on Rock's ass. And so Mick Foley comes out before Rock gets his ass all medievaled. Foley reminds these two that they're in a fatal 4-way match this week at Unforgiven, but he's not here to stop these two from fighting each other tonight. He books Rock vs Taker for our Raw main event, and so Chris Benoit comes out to complain. Benoit says he deserves a WWF title match tonight and not The Undertaker. Here comes Kane to say, oh hell no sister. The Big Red Machine wants to face Rock tonight for the WWF title, but Mick says he didn't mention anything about Rock defending the WWF title tonight. Rock can do many things, such as come up with catchphrases that Mick Foley can steal, and he can get away with wearing fuzzy shirts like the one he's wearing right now, but Rock cannot book WWF title matches, so the championship won't be on the line tonight. Rock is still going to face Undertaker in a singles match though, and as for Kane and Benoit, these two can also have a singles match. Benoit and Kane end up fighting each other on the outside, they get broken up by officials. Inside the ring, Rock and Undertaker have a tense stare down, which does get the crowd all fired up. It should be a good main event. Tori and the franchise had a mixed tag team match against Kiwi and Paisley. Yeah, from a scaffold match last night on pay-per-view to a random mixed tag match on Nitro. This one ended when Kiwi kissed Tori and Paisley wanted to get a piece of Tori inside the ring. But Shane decided not to tag his valet in, and instead he just hit Paisley with a franchiser. This was totally legal, seeing as men can face women in WCW mixed tag matches. So an easy win for the franchise and Tori. Next on Nitro, Big Smooth wants to have a chat with David Flair while Raw presents that Chris Benoit vs Kane match. And before Smooth got in the ring to call out David, WCW showed a replay of Mike Tenay visiting David's crappy shithole of a house. This was pretty good, and it's no wonder it got replayed on Nitro. I'm not going to go over it again though, so make sure you check out the Fall Brawl video. Smooth says he knows David wants answers. Young David wants to know who the father of Stacey's child is. If David has the money, Smooth has the answers David's looking for. And so David rushes down to the ring and our boy's got his crowbar again. We're back to Psycho Flair and I'm all for it. Smooth has a videotape, a very hot videotape. Billy Kidman left this tape in Smooth's limo, though Kidman didn't knock one into Stacey and Kidman is not the daddy. However, the culprit is on this videotape, and if David has some good cash, no pennies, no nickels, good fucking cash, then Smooth will hand the tape over. David hands over the mean green, he gets the videotape. He then hits Smooth while the big man's back's turned, and for some reason David didn't take his money back. Rookie mistake. So, David rushes to the back holding the VHS. He needs to find a video player. He goes to the production truck where a guy tells him to go away, so David swings his crowbar and the guy gets knocked out. Later on, Jimmy Hart informs David that Smooth has a VCR inside his limousine. David says, "Oh, thanks Jimmy," before knocking him out too, and David finally gets to watch the tape. We don't see who the daddy is, but the contents of the tape make David freak out. The video gets destroyed, and David runs off into the night. Where he's running to, no one knows. On Raw, Chris Benoit tried to focus on Kane's left leg in an effort to slow the big man down. During the match, Jim Ross announced that Steve Austin was going to appear on Raw's TNN debut next week from Penn State University, so get ready people. The Rattlesnake's going to be back full time it seems, and that means we get to cover his work again on Reliving the War. Benoit's efforts to chop the big man down failed when the Big Red Machine delivered an enziguri, and from here Kane dominated the match with a clothesline, a big boot and a drop on the guardrail outside the ring. Benoit took the easy way out. He decided to hit Kane with the ring bell, not once but twice. The referee called for the bell, and so Chris shoved the official down to the canvas, and Benoit delivered a diving headbutt before making his way out of the ring. Kane set up, and so Chris had to make sure he got out of dodge as quickly as possible. Russo's screwing around with a tape recorder. He presses the record button before Steiner and Jarrett enter his locker room. Vince acts innocent as he reads a copy of Flex magazine, and Scott says you need to have muscles to read this fine publication. Jarrett and Steiner scream at Russo about this upcoming main event, and Russo changes the subject by asking the boys what they think about KroniK. Bit weird, and I'm surprised Jeff and Steiner fell for this. But Scott says KroniK sucks, and Jarrett says they only have one move. Bit like breaking a guitar over someone's head, eh Jeff? Russo's got what he needs. The boys leave the locker room. Vince takes the tape out of the recorder and he tells Mike Sanders to give it to KroniK. Russo also tells Mike that no one kisses ass as good as young Sanders here, and Mike thinks this is great coming from someone like Mr. Russo. It's absolutely wild. Booker T defends his world title next against Sting on Nitro. On Raw, Triple H, Stephanie and Kurt Angle take on Test, Albert and Trish. Triple H tells Stephanie to stay away from Test and Albert. Hunter's going to stay away from Kurt because, you know. Hunter was just calling Kurt a sissy boy when the man himself walks in, and Angle says if any harm comes to Stephanie, he'll be on TNA in an Olympic second. As for Triple H should try to go a match without hitting his wife, to which Hunter replies,
"Try to go a match without hitting on me, okay?"
The competitors get in the ring. We begin with a Harley Race knee to Big Albert. Hunter wants to tag out and okay, he's not going to drop this, is he? Kurt needs to show he's a real man, so he delivers a German suplex. He then holds Test in position after tagging in Hunter, and Hunter knows what Kurt's up to right now. My goodness. Big clothesline from Triple H before Angle gets tagged in again. This time there's no messing around as Kurt goes straight to work. Angle wants Hunter to take this seriously, and he has words with his partner after putting Test down, but he didn't notice Albert tagging in, and now the heels are going to get the upper hand. Quick tags from TNA lead to Kurt getting slammed all over the ring. Albert performs a big double underhook suplex. Test performs his gut wrench powerbomb. Angle gets the break after a DDT, and instead of tagging in Hunter, he tags in Stephanie. To ensure no harm comes to Steph, Triple H gets in the ring and the game takes out both Albert and Test. JR's a bit confused when Hunter covers Test because Stephanie's the legal competitor right now, but order gets restored when Angle and Hunter end up on the outside. Test approaches Steph, he takes a smack to the face, Big Andy gets payback by pie-facing Little Miss McMahon, and he then tells Trish to come in for a bulldog. The crowd love this, by the way. Test goes up for his big elbow, Hunter saves his wife from getting her chest caved in, and our match ends with Hunter giving Test a pedigree. Hunter pulls his wife on top of Test, Stephanie gets the 1-2-3, and not only is Triple H really happy, but Angle's also really happy. So happy that he gets in the ring and he gives Stephanie a hug because this man just doesn't learn, does he? Triple H sees red, he brings Kurt down to the mat and he lays the punches in. Another hard punch sends Angle out of the ring, and Hunter throws the referee around before Stephanie gets him to calm down. It was all fun and games until Kurt tried to get close to Stephanie again, and I think Hunter won't be making any jokes at Unforgiven later in the week. Booker T versus Sting started off with the men giving clean breaks, which is a bit odd seeing as both men were beating the hell out of each other backstage earlier on. Top wrist lock, hammerlock and a shoulder block from Sting, knee to the midsection from Booker as he looks for the axe kick, but the champ gets put down with a clothesline. Sting looks for a splash, but Booker gets the knees up. The crowd are booing Booker T here, which is to be expected if he's wrestling Sting, to be honest. And there's no pop at all when Booker delivers the Harlem sidekick followed by the axe kick. Sting doesn't get paid by the minute, folks. His matches have been incredibly short as of late, and he looks to end it with a Scorpion Death Drop. Booker does counter it, but Sting brings Book down with an arm breaker, and I hate to say it, but this is the end of our match. Sting delivers 2 Stinger splashes, he then looks for the Scorpion Deathlock, and here comes Jeff Jarrett, for the love of Christ. Jeff goes right after Sting. Booker ends up helping Sting out. This leads to Scotty Steiner coming out to help out his buddy, and the heels get the better of the baby faces. Sting gets a guitar broken over his head, he gets put in the figure 4 while Booker gets put in a Steiner recliner. Complete domination from Jarrett and Scott, and our match has been thrown down the toilet. It's frustrating too, seeing as this match was built up a little over the pay-per-view and what have you, and it just turns into your standard WCW title match with an incredibly short runtime along with predictable interference. That absolute unit Brian Clark's listening to his Walkman. We'd all moved on to CDs by this time, but not Brian Clark. Also, this is very convenient seeing as Mike Sanders has that tape from Vince Russo, and he tells Big Brian to have a listen. Clark says, "What's this?" and Sanders says, "It's a tape." So Brian has a listen. He then brings the tape to Ernest Miller. Miller says he doesn't listen to heavy metal shit, and Clark's like, "Nah, this is a diss track from Big Papa Pump and Jeff Jarrett." The Cat decides to book KroniK against Double J and Steiner tonight on Nitro, and that match is coming up after Team Canada take on the Misfits in action. Over on Raw, we've got Rikishi versus Chyna. So Lance Helix and Major Bops come to the ring. They get a great ovation too, seeing as they're in their home country. Team Canada not only retain the Canadian Championship, they also retain Major Guns. But they also got a new member, and that new member comes to the ring while Old Canada plays in the arena. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, what a traitor. Hacksaw's had a shave because Canadians don't have beards. Jim says the American fans treated him like a joke. He carried the American flag and the crowd treated him like garbage. The fans didn't even care when Goldberg almost destroyed him. They chanted Goldberg's name while Hacksaw was fighting for his life. No more Mr. Nice Guy, no more USA. Hacksaw's in it for himself and he tells the fans to rise for the Canadian national anthem. But before that can happen, the Misfits run down and we've got a 6-man tag. Reaction, Loco and Cajun versus Storm, Skipper and Duggan. Skipper doesn't do so well at the start of the match. The M.I.A. focus all their efforts on Helix and we see a sweet Doomsday dropkick from Loco and Cajun. Hacksaw leads a Canada chant as Skipper comes back with a clothesline, and Duggan comes in to manhandle Chavo. Duggan's trying to show a mean streak here, and God love him, he can't help but still look a little goofy. In comes Skipper, and those M.I.A. bastards cheat by having Sergeant AWOL show up. Skipper gets put through a table, which means Lance has to take over, and in the ring, Reaction blocks a superkick before delivering a release German suplex. Reaction wants Duggan, he wants the dirty turncoat in the ring right now. The Canadian Hacksaw steps inside the ropes, he and Reaction circle the ring, and Lance delivers that super kick to Reaction, so we get no physicality between the General and Duggan. Our match ends with AWOL grabbing Lance from the apron while Duggan lays everyone out with his 2x4. The referee's totally oblivious, and Duggan wins the match via pinfall. The fans love the outcome, but I assume Hacksaw is going to be public enemy number 1 when Nitro returns to America. A chair gets put around the General's knee, Hacksaw whacks it with his 2x4, and I'm sure the General's going to be walking just fine on our next episode of Reliving the War. Don't worry about it, folks. On Raw, Eddie Guerrero apologised for showing up at the Playboy Mansion last week on SmackDown. Eddie wanted to stop Chyna's photo shoot from coming out, but it's all good, according to Chyna. Chyna's already forgiven Eddie, and Eddie promises to be more supportive. He seems to have a bit of a cough though. He doesn't seem to be doing so well, though this cough only came on when Chyna reminded Eddie about his upcoming match against Rikishi. Eddie began feeling a bit worse, he needed help tying his boots up. Chyna said she was going to get the match cancelled, but Eddie suggested that she went out to wrestle Rikishi instead. He's no good, is that Eddie Guerrero. Before the match took place, Taz came out dressed to impress, and for those wondering, Taz decided not to leave the WWF after Mick Foley granted him a strap match against Jerry Lawler at Unforgiven. He gives Lillian Garcia the night off. Taz is going to serve as our special ring announcer, and keep in mind too that Jerry Lawler isn't allowed to touch Taz before the pay-per-view and vice versa. After making the announcements, Taz trolls his upcoming opponent by standing next to him at the commentary table. And then Eddie Guerrero came out to back up his Mamacita. Poor Eddie looks really ill. I feel sorry for him. Rikishi goes on the attack. Eddie's still got his blanket wrapped around him as he takes a beating. He gets brought in the ring, thrown in the corner, and he gets set up for a stink face. So Chyna decides to help Eddie, and Rikishi gets attacked. Keep in mind that Rikishi and Chyna are still friends, apparently. This sneaky Eddie Guerrero suddenly gets up and he maces Rikishi. He then gets out of the ring and he leaves Chyna all alone. Chyna tries to check on Big Quiche, but she ends up taking a Samoan drop, and Rikishi invites Eddie to get in the ring and save his woman. Guerrero decides he's better off standing on the rampway, so Rikishi delivers a weak banzai drop before walking away. Eddie's plan backfired, but hey, at least he didn't have to wrestle. Taz screams in Lawler's face that Rikishi's our winner. He laughs at the king, and there's nothing Jerry can do about it. Steiner and Jarrett go after Russo. They want to know why Vince set them up for a match against KroniK, but Russo, of course, said he had nothing to do with it. Jeff says the lads are coming after Russo once they get done with KroniK, and that match is up next on Nitro while Raw presents the return of William Regal. Oh yeah. Old Regal's had quite the Monday Night War journey, hasn't he? Started in WCW, went to the WWF, got fired, went back to WCW, and then went back to the WWF again. Regal says he wants to be a goodwill ambassador to the American people, and he's going to take some time to show these American fans some good manners. Proper dining etiquette is super important, so Regal sits at his little table and he gives the fans some tips. You don't need a rose on the table, a pansy will do. You work your way from the outside in when choosing your forks, and the napkin is not your enemy, ladies and gents. Here comes Chris Jericho telling Regal to shut the hell up. Regal's face tells us that he's a bit surprised. And Jericho says you need to make an impact upon your debut. Jericho made his debut in this very arena, so Chris knows what he's talking about. Only thing is, this isn't Regal's debut. It's a return, but small details. Jericho wants to do something special. He's going to pull the tablecloth away without a single table item touching the canvas. Chris wants a drum roll. Regal looks very interested. And yeah, that's one way to do it. Regal's reaction was so on point though. What Jericho wasn't expecting was X-Pac showing up, and look, Pac's using Steve Blackman's nunchucks of mass destruction. He raided the Mudvug Dojo weapon room. This means Jericho has no hope at all. Y2J gets wrecked. The table gets broken over Y2J's lifeless body, and Pac celebrates by swinging Blackman's big nunchucks around. Really happy to see Regal back on Reliving the War though, he's one of my favourites. I love his early 90s WCW run, but for pure entertainment value, this WWF run he's about to embark on is probably better. KroniK got in the ring to wrestle Jeff and Steiner, but Kevin Nash walked out instead along with Mike Sanders and the Natural Born Thrillers. Nash said KroniK aren't in the same league as Jarrett and Steiner. Nash has a group of young lions who want to prove themselves right now, so he asks for 2 volunteers, and we've got Sanders and Johnny hitting the ring to take on the 2 Bryans. Sanders gets taken out easily, Johnny takes the full Nelson slam, so more thrillers enter the ring and yeah, they get taken out too. Chuck Palumbo takes the high times, Kevin Nash sends Jindrak and O'Hare down to the ring, Jarrett and Steiner then show up and they attack KroniK from behind, and our match ends with Double J performing the stroke on Clark. The referee gets pulled into the ring and he counts 1, 2, 3, so Steiner and Jarrett win the match. Absolute dog shit. Steiner and Jeff celebrate along with the natural born thrillers. It's kinda like the New Blood all over again. Russo, however, is now in trouble. Jarrett and Steiner's coming after him, so he goes out to find Sting, who just so happens to be sitting in the corner of his locker room praying to God that this episode of Nitro comes to a swift end. Vince wants Sting to be his tag team partner. Sting grabs him by the neck, so I guess that's going to be a no. But Russo reminds Sting that this is for another shot at the World Championship. If Sting doesn't take this opportunity, then maybe what everyone says is actually true. Maybe Sting doesn't have heart anymore. Sting grabs Russo again. He says he'll show everyone that he does have heart because tonight in our Nitro main event, it's showtime, folks. So right now, it's Sting and Russo versus Jarrett and Steiner. Mike Awesome arrived in Nitro in his shaggin' wagon. Gary Coleman's here again too, and Gary calls Mike a bastard for shagging. No, he called him a bastard for not having his back last night at Fall Brawl. Coleman says he's going to find Jeff Jarrett. Awesome heads into the arena, and we can see the Dark Carnival in the background heading towards Awesome's bus. 3 count tell Mike he might want to go back and see what happened to his sweet ride, and yeah, vandalism. Vandalism that reads Mike mediocre and ICP rules. Mike says he paid top dollar for this bus, so he's going to head back to the ring and challenge Vampiro to a match on Raw. Too Cool take on Edge and Christian. Mike says he's normally a happy guy, but he's sick and tired of everyone messing with his awesome love mobile. So Mike wants a hardcore match right now, and he tells Vampiro to leave the sissy ICP boys in the back. Vamp comes out, Mike takes a ton of kendo stick shots. He fires back with a fantastic belly-to-belly suplex, and this gets followed up with a dive over the top rope. Awesome was so good, man, yet so wasted in WCW. The two get into the crowd, they end up deep into the audience where Vampiro performs a diving crossbody from the balcony. The two head back to the ringside area where Awesome takes control again with a lot of weapon shots, and then Mike sets up a table. Vampiro gets softened up with a big splash. Awesome looks for an Awesome bomb, but Vampiro avoids it. Awesome gets one more opportunity though when he kicks Vamp right in his Vampy balls, and Mike wins after putting his opponent through the table. The crowd chant holy shit, and gotta say, this crowd has been red hot throughout this whole episode of Nitro, and it really does make all the difference. The tag team titles were on the line in our Raw match, and unfortunately, Too Cool didn't get the job done. The champions have constantly cheated in their tag team title defenses to get them by, and they had to cheat here in order to leave Raw holding their belts. Scotty performed the worm on Christian, Edge then got in the ring and he accidentally speared his own partner. The Grandmaster went upstairs and we saw the hip hop drop, but Tim White got distracted when Scotty wouldn't leave the ring. This allowed Edge to hit Christopher with his tag team belt, and the champions retained the gold. Nothing special here really. Taz is getting in Lawler's face again. JR tells security to come down and take Taz away, so the human suplex machine gets escorted to the back while he laughs his ass off. Booker T enters Vince Russo's dressing room. We don't see what happens because Nitro cuts right to a commercial break. Right now, Russo needs to get to the ring for his tag team main event match while Raw presents The Undertaker versus The Rock. But Russo's been taken out and it looks like Booker T's going to take his place. So Sting and Booker, two men who wrestled each other earlier tonight, are going to take on Steiner and Jeff. Whoever gets the pinfall or submission win becomes number one contender. Sting takes care of Steiner on the outside while Booker focuses on Double J. The guys switch places so Sting can pull off a top rope splash, though Jeff comes in to save it for his team. The commentators wonder why Booker T's even here. He's the champion after all, and he's nothing to gain from competing tonight. Medeja then shows up, she gets in the ring and she hits Booker with a lead pipe. When she goes for Sting though, Miss Jones shows up to pull her out. Medeja takes a body slam, she gets brought back up the rampway, so she shouldn't be a factor moving forward. What a shame. Booker's in a lot of trouble. Jeff and Steiner keep their focus on the WCW champion and he needs to tag out. And throughout the remainder of the match, all we're going to have here is Booker taking a beating until the final hot tag. It's not very interesting honestly, and a big reason for that is because we've already seen all these guys on Nitro tonight. After Fall Brawl, tonight should have been built around Scotty Steiner. He shouldn't be sharing a spotlight with Double J in my opinion, and so I see this all as a wasted opportunity. There's still hope though, right? I mean, all Scotty has to do is win the match and make himself the number one contender. Well, unfortunately, Scotty doesn't get the win. As a matter of fact, none of these guys in the ring right now get the win. Sting gets his hot tag and he fires up. He's throwing drop kicks like they're going out of fashion. He and Jarrett head outside while Booker comes in for an axe kick on Big Papa Pump, and the mask gets taken off Scotty's face just as KroniK show up. KroniK beat Jarrett up while Sting looks on. The Stinger then heads back up the ramp for some reason, and that means he and Double J are out of the match. Vince Russo then appears. He's all beaten up. Scotty's got Book in the Steiner recliner, and he's not happy when Russo shows up to ruin his big win. So, Scotty releases the hold, he whacks Russo with a forearm shot, Booker manages to get Russo's baseball bat and he hits Scott across the face, and Booker then puts Vinny Roo on top of Steiner. Vince Russo wins via pinfall. Booker wanted Vince to win so he could face him next week with no repercussions, but if you know WCW like I know WCW, this means Russo has a very high chance of winning the world belt on our next show. My fucking goodness. Before the Raw main event, Mick Foley came out to tell fans to smack down their vote. Sorry, I don't care, mate. What I do care about is The Rock versus The Undertaker, though we've got Chris Benoit on commentary, and that likely means we won't have a clean finish. The competitors trade the advantage, though fans are most definitely behind The Rock tonight. Rock gets up close and personal with the ring steps when the match goes to the outside, though Taker ends up punching the ring post because it looked at him the wrong way. A big punch sends Undertaker onto the announce desk, and a punch to the balls doesn't help matters either. Back inside the ring, we get a referee bump. This isn't the match I thought it would be, honestly, though it kinda makes sense we wouldn't get a clean finish, seeing as we're days away from the pay-per-view. Taker performs a DDT, but the official's still out cold. The ref's still out after Rock performs a spinebuster, followed by the People's Elbow. He does wake up following a chokeslam from the American Badass, but Rock kicks out at 2 before looking for a rock bottom. Taker counters it, and he's able to plant Rock with the last ride, and my god, Taker pins Rock and Benoit didn't get involved. Actually surprised by this, and it's not like the referee bump gave anyone an advantage or disadvantage. It was a level playing field really, and Taker pinned the WWF champion. Kane comes out after the match. This is Benoit's cue to get in the ring, and we've got these two beating up The Undertaker for a bit. Rock helps The Undertaker out and the heels get sent to the outside, but then, just before we fade out for another week, The Rock performs a rock bottom on the dead man. What happens next? Well, we'll have to wait until Unforgiven to find out. I liked bits and pieces from both shows this week, but Raw wins just because way too many people were overused on Nitro. Jarrett, Steiner, Russo, Sting and Booker were all over Nitro this week, and I was tired of seeing them by the main event. The Triple H, Kurt Angle and Stephanie stuff was once again pretty good on Raw. The Taker and Rock promo was good too, and I liked the Taker defeated Rock without any outside interference. So yeah, Raw defeats what was essentially another run-of-the-mill Russo episode of Nitro. Raw's on 147 points, Nitro's on 82, and we've got 24 ties. In the TV ratings, Raw scores a 5.7, Nitro brings in a miserable 2.75. A really bad number for a Fallout show. Come over next Thursday and I'll have something for you to watch related to Reliving the War. I wasn't going to leave you high and dry while I take this short break. Unforgiven will be available on the channel on Thursday the 31st of July, and following the pay-per-view, normal service resumes on the channel. So keep checking the channel for updates, or if you want to be Steve Blackman levels of awesome, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching everyone, thanks for understanding. I need a short break every now and then because, my god, this stuff can get pretty repetitive after, 5 years. But I'll be back very soon for another Raw vs Nitro episode, and I'll be back to finish this series once and for all. At ease, soldier, thanks again for watching, and please take care.